I'd like to call to order the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment September the 1st, 2011 meeting. Remind you to turn off your cell phones and other electronics if you haven't done so already. We will postpone the approval of minutes until we have a full board again. Next is requests by staff or applicants. We have two continuance requests, case number 13448, asking to be continued to September the 15th, 2011.
And item number 13, case number 13447 to 1020.
Correct. It requires a separate motion for each continuance request. So I would entertain a motion for the continuance of 13448 to September the 15th.
So moved.
Second. Please register your vote. Mark? Let the vote show. The next request is case number 13447, asking to be continued to October the 20th.
Move the continuance of that case to that date.
Second. Register your vote. Continued. Do we have other continuous requests from staff? Any from the public? Let's proceed with the first case then.
Item number 1, case number 13449, request for use variance of New Dominion for permit to drill an oil gas well located at 17923 North Indian Meridian.
Members of the board, my name is Dennis Box, and Jerry Bro is here with the company to answer any questions if you have any. This is a site, and if you'll look at it, it's a site that we're over the next few months planning on drilling 4 wells. And this is a site where the property owner, which has a home back to the west, has approved our location and owns minerals, and we believe this is a good site. The pad site is appropriate for the number of wells we want to drill, and we know of no protests. So we're here to answer any questions if you have any.
Can we consider these 4 together? Or? Oh, is that right? Okay. Do you have protests? Or? No?
You can discuss them all together with the same facts, but vote separately.
Is that okay?
Could be
Is that all
fine.
right with you?
Yes.
That's what I propose.
Pardon me?
What do we need to do now?
If you have no questions for the applicant, then I would assume that we would go ahead and entertain a motion to.
I thought we were going to discuss all 4 of them together, and then.
If you have any comments or questions for the applicant, now would be the time to ask.
Move approval.
For
Second.
item 1.
Item 1.
Please register your votes. You are approved.
Move approval on number 2 as well.
We have a motion and a
Second.
register your vote. You are approved.
Move approval on number 3. Item 3.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Please register your vote.
Move approval of item 4.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. You are approved.
You don't get to charge as much now.
Thank you.
Item number 5, case number 13453, application for special exception of Stevens & Johnson Operating Company to allow an enhanced recovery injection well located at 8410 South Bryant Avenue.
Russell Walker for Stevens & Johnson. As you all probably know, Stevens & Johnson is a prolific operator of wells in Oklahoma County, almost all of which happen to lie inside the city limits of Oklahoma City. There is what's called a field-wide unit in South Oklahoma City called the Oklahoma City South Wilcox Sand Unit, and it's a unit for secondary recovery. It's been there since 1953 about. Secondary recovery involves what we call pressure maintenance or repressurization in an oil-bearing formation. That's typically achieved by the injection of salt water, produced salt water from someplace else or for that particular formation, back into the formation to maintain pressure in the formation adequate to drive oil from the formation. This is a request to drill a new saltwater injection well into the Wilcox Sand and operate it as a pressure maintenance well. The request, again, is for a special exception and not to a zoning variance. The criteria that which one usually analyze in deciding whether a zoning variance should be granted don't necessarily apply to this particular matter. It will be a well that will be newly drilled and constructed, and it's sort of out in the middle of nowhere, so it shouldn't disturb anybody. And if anybody has any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them if I can. I've got an engineer from Stevenson Johnson here as well, if anybody has any questions.
Of course, the injection well will be monitored by the Oklahoma Corporation Commission.
Correct. In fact, the application for a permit to construct and operate the well has been submitted to the commission, and the time period necessary to expire before approval is achieved has occurred, and the commission has indicated to us that they are writing a permit. They used to call them orders, but now they call them permits to construct and operate the well in the way that's been proposed to the commission and proposed to the city of Oklahoma City.
I'd make a motion to approve the special exception.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Prior to that, are there a lot of different fluids now? Is there a change in types of fluids being used these days? I guess I was reading an article about that recently or something about different types of fluids being used for injection.
Again, this is not fracturing.
No, that's right. That's fracturing. This is saltwater injection. Okay, I'm sorry.
As a matter of fact, you want to maintain the injection pressure at below the frac gradient. In this case, you don't want any fracturing to occur.
The real estate guy asking questions. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you very much.
Item number 6, case number 13445, request of Joshua Newberry for a variance to permit 2 apartment buildings encroaching the platted 25-foot front building line located at 3101 South Gulf Avenue and 3100 South Gulf Avenue.
Good afternoon. We are trying to...
Pardon me, would you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Joshua Newberry, 200 Northwest 16th Street.
Thank you.
My wife and I manage several buildings in this area. It's one of the hardest areas in Oklahoma City, and we run a nonprofit housing group out of a lot of the units, and we work with the owner of these properties as well. He lives in California, and we're trying to sell these units off to another developer, so we'll have some more development in the area. Apparently there is it's like 1 or 2 feet of encroachment that these buildings were built on, and so we're just needing this done so that we can sell these other 2 buildings to a developer so that there will be no longer blighted buildings. He's ready to go and make them into housing for 10 more families to live in the area, and we're really excited if we can get that to happen because we've been working there for 3 years, and this is the last of the apartment buildings down there that either we haven't funded ourselves to rehabilitate or we've gotten other developers to do. And so I'd be really happy if we could get this done.
Based on the length of time this has been an existing condition and the minimal encroachment, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you very much.
Item number 7, case number 13415, request of Crossland Construction Company for a variance to the hard surface paving requirements located at 8300 Southwest 15th Street.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'm K.D. Lackey, and I'm here on behalf of Crossland and Cactus Drilling Company. This matter has been continued from a previous time based on some objections that a number of parties had. Of the objectors, two of them have sent us letters withdrawing their objection based on an agreement that we would pave the one long road into the side up there coming off of 15th Street. And we've also made an agreement with Mr. Frymiller. Kelly Work is here representing Mr. Frymiller today, and we've submitted some language that we would like appended to any sort of a variance that you might grant in regard to a protest that was put forward by KECO. Mr. White, the president of KECO, agreed to withdraw his objection based on the paving of that road and agreed to send us a letter but did not get it to us in time, and I think Mr. Work can verify that. Mr. Simon at Cactus dealt with him, and it was also Mr. Work's request that we make clear to the board that the road coming in off of 15th Street up to the yard around the shop building, that road is going to be hard paved. We've agreed to do that, and the rest of the area there that you see shaded is going to, if we're granted the variance, is going to remain in gravel. But the language that we've agreed to with Mr. Work, we're going to, as we do on a regular basis many times a week, is water that gravel in so there won't be a lot of dust moving around and any of that. And Mr. Simon with Cactus is here, and Court St. Shorn is here with on behalf of Crossland, on behalf of Crossland. If you have any questions of them or me, we'll entertain.
I do. Is the truck that would water the gravel on site all the time, or is it something that would
Yes,
be
sir. It's our truck, and we do it on all our yards 4, 5, 6 times a week. Dust is an enemy to us too, because we have a lot of electrical equipment on those drilling rigs that we're building, and just can't have it.
Are there different types of gravel that is, some of which are less prone to create that dust?
I can't answer that question. You might direct that toward Mr. Simon or Mr. St. Shorn, but I can't answer that question. I'm sure that whatever gravel they put down is going to be beneficial for them. I'm sure it's got to be fairly heavy gravel because the equipment and everything they use out there is
It seems like some of the larger aggregate
really large.
is less prone, I think, to creating the dust that some of the smaller aggregate is.
What it is an 1.5 inch ODOT Class 8 gravel. It has an 1.5 inch large rock in it and smaller fines. What the fines do is they melt in with a larger rock and actually pack. We have to achieve 95% compaction for all of our rock when we put it down, so that keeps any of the small particulates or anything from going in the air.
In terms of this language, if the variance was considered with this language included, what would be the criteria for days that you had to water and days that you didn't?
Well, like I said before, we do it 4, 5, 6 times a week anyway, and so
Even when the wind's not blowing?
all the time. It's just, the dust is just not acceptable out there. But neither's obviously paving that large of an area, and with the equipment and everything that they use, the paving would constantly be breaking down. It's just,
What is the thickness of the slab then in the driveway that the equipment will be driving over?
We're proposing a 7-inch thick concrete road.
So that would be the requirement for the parking area around the shop building too, to handle the
That's
weight of the
correct.
equipment there.
What you see on the plan, there's a 25-foot apron around 60% of the building. Any place there's overhead doors where travel will be going in and out of the facility.
And how far from Southwest 15th to where the gravel begins?
640 feet.
Would you like to address the application? And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kelly Work, and I am an attorney representing D&M Carriers LLC, which does business as Fry Miller across the street to the north. And I just want to confirm what Mr. Lackey indicated, that with the assurance that the access road off of Southwest 15th back to the shop area will be hard surface paved with concrete as has been indicated, and with the agreed language being included as a condition of any variance if the board should choose to grant it, then we do not have an objection to the variance request. And as I understand it, what would be required under the code would be the hard surface parking area that would be required to serve the shop building, and then also there was an apron area around the shop building itself that is with respect to which the variance would be requested. So with those, with the agreement that we have made with Cactus Drilling and Crosslands and the paving of the access road, as I indicated, we don't have an objection to the variance request.
Would that be binding, or would it just be a letter of understanding, basically?
Well, what we're asking is that actually be made a condition that this language that has been agreed to be included as part of your board order granting the variance, so that it would indicate that the grant of the variance is conditioned on this language.
And
that would be our request.
And that would be enforceable, and there would be, okay.
Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'd make a motion to approve the variance with the two conditions attached to the motion per Mr. Work's statements.
Okay, second?
We have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. You are approved.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Mr. Sansaki, you said two conditions? Okay.
Item number 8, case number 13444, request of Salvador and Camelia Carnero for a variance to permit a porch and carport encroaching into the front yard setback located at 2417 South Pennsylvania Avenue.
Is the applicant present today? I do not see them.
Well, we can continue if you want to, or I can speak to it. It's up to you.
We can go ahead and, we can discuss it. I've been by the house, and I assume you have been too.
You were down there? Yeah, I took the pictures that are in the packet here, and it seems to me to be a mixed area, a lot of industrial and that type of thing in there. Of course, the school across the street. There doesn't seem to be any adverse impact on the area to me. Obviously, it's there, so this is a minimum.
And the one thing I noticed is the carport, I guess, is awfully close to the house that sits immediately to the north, the shingled house. But there appears to be no objection from that homeowner, and
We haven't heard anything.
no.
If there's no opposition, we have the ability to make the motion this time.
Yeah, and the application's submitted, so I guess it doesn't have to be anybody here. I move approval of the application. I did. I move approval.
I will second it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That's okay.
We have a motion and a second. Please register your vote.
Item number 9, case number 13454, request of the City of Oklahoma City for a variance to permit accessory attached signs exceeding the maximum allowable size located at 100 West Reno Avenue.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Anderson, City Manager's Office, representing the city, owner of the subject property. And we are requesting a variance with regard to the accessory signage. This specifically is roof signage that will reflect the name of the arena. The subject property with this particular signage To the best of our knowledge, there's never been a request for roof signage of this type made before. Consequently, there's no provision for it in the existing ordinance. NBA and sports entertainment arenas of this type, it's very common to have this type of signage on the roof for what is commonly in the industry known as the beauty shot, where there might be an aerial moving photograph taken of the arena and shown prior to the game or at intermissions, that kind of thing. Typically, what would happen is the team might have such a shot taken prior to the season, provide that tape to the media, and they would use that during the game, promotes the facility, promotes the city, that kind of thing. So due to the fact that there's no provision in the ordinance for this type of roof signage and to the size relative to the ratio of the building, we request the variance.
Any
Is there any
discussion?
neighbors here in protest? No? Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. You are approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 10, case number 13455, request of Carlos Padilla for a variance to the 5-foot side building setback located at 2612 Southwest 44th Street.
Good afternoon, Jesse Chappell. I'm here on behalf of Carlos Padilla. Mr. Padilla requests a variance to the 5-foot side building setback requirement for his personal residence. In April of this year, the city granted Mr. Padilla a permit to construct a second-story addition to his house. We believe the site plan that was attached to Mr. Padilla's permit application disclosed the fact that the second-story addition was going to encroach on the setback. Mr. Padilla relied on the permit and began construction on the second-story addition. Sometime in June or July of this year, the city discovered the fact that the second-story addition was going to encroach the setback requirement. However, by this time, Mr. Padilla had already completed a large part of the second-story addition. Several inspections were done during his construction phase. The inspectors, I guess they didn't identify the problem at the time, so Mr. Padilla was not warned of the noncompliance. We believe that everyone involved in this matter acted in good faith. However, mistakes were made and the permit was granted in error. As stated before, Mr. Padilla has completed a large part of it, so he will, of course, suffer substantial hardship if the variance isn't granted. He obviously will have to incur substantial costs in having to reconstruct and reconfigure the second-story addition. Furthermore, the relief requested would not cause substantial detriment to the public good, nor would it affect the use and enjoyment of the affected properties. That is because we want to stress the fact that it's only the second-story addition that encroaches on the setback. The adjoining properties don't have a second story, so the effect on them is minimal. And I do have letters from the adjoining affected residents, and they support Mr. Padilla's application and state that it won't affect their use and enjoyment. So with all that said, we ask to consider our request.
Let me excuse you for just a moment. We've asked Ms. Ortiz has requested to speak to this application. Can I invite her to come forward?
Oh, she was the help with the community.
You are with the applicant? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then I would, any discussion, questions from the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. You are approved.
All right, thank you.
That works, huh? What a deal.
Item number 11, case number 13244, request of Lana Comia for extension of the time period approved for completion pursuant to an order of the board located at 524 Northwest 17th Street.
My name is Doug Friesen. Lana is no longer representing the Bowmans. She felt that she had lost her the confidence of this board. I am here.
And may I interrupt you for a moment, just for the benefit of those that are in attendance today, to review where we've come from and where we are today. We first heard this in June of 2010, and what we're dealing with is the addition to the rear of the house. And there were 6 months allowed for completion. Clerical error at the city inadvertently allowed another 6 months, and then a few days were added on top of that. And so at the July 7th meeting, Lana appeared and indicated that the work was not complete and asked for more time. And the board's order at that time was that the time between that July meeting and the August meeting was not to be used foolishly, but to use toward completion of the work on the house. And we had also requested that at the August 4th meeting, a representative of the city, Catherine Montgomery, document for us, this board, the work that had occurred. When Lana appeared on August the 4th, the work was still not complete, and she asked for another year. Catherine reported that there was still work left to be done on the rear of the house, and at that time we continued her from August to this meeting. And part of the conditions of that August 4th meeting were to remove that structure on the back porch that she indicated was using to shelter material and perhaps tools, and to move it, and that the back door and the steps were to be completed prior to today's meeting, and that Catherine was to monitor the progress of the house this past 30 days. This board also compelled the attendance of the Bowmans.
Correct.
And the attendance of your contractor. And are they present today?
They are not.
Let the record indicate that they are not here today. Please proceed.
I think there was some misunderstanding in reference to that meeting.
Which meeting?
A month ago.
The August meeting.
Correct. At that time, what I was informed, and I was certainly not at that meeting, what is attempted to be informed to this court was that the back porch itself, as well as the back doors, were being used at the present time to shelter equipment that is used in cutting of wood that is too long. There's no place else inside the house to do that. Her comment about a year needed to complete was based upon an estimate of the completion of all of the wood being cut that was going to be needed, the interior work. Not that it needed a year to complete the exterior, but that was the time that was needed to complete the work inside the house. And so there may have been a little bit of a misunderstanding there.
Then where do we stand on the scope of the work that we're considering today?
Since last month, the bricks have been laid around, the skirting has been laid around the outside. Doors have been put in. Window dividers have been put in. Shingling has been done, I believe, on the east side. Bricks have been laid. And with the exception of some cosmetic things, I think the only thing that has not been done is the concrete porch.
Are you directing the work of the contractor?
I am now.
But previously Lana was?
Yes and no.
If it's okay, I'd like to excuse you for a moment and invite Catherine to come forward. Go ahead.
Catherine Montgomery, Historic Preservation Architect for the City of Oklahoma City. The report that you have before you is a little bit updated from last month, including some introductory paragraphs. I did not put items on the list last month that had to do with the temporary tarp and raised area that were at the back door, so I added that in the introductory paragraphs. I didn't change the list at all, even though there were other things that I could have added to it, but I did cross out things that had been accomplished over the past 30 days. The material that you have backing it up is starting with the most recent date that photographs were taken, which was Tuesday of this week, always starting with the front of the house to illustrate what the front of the property looks like, and then moving to the back and trying to capture similar photographs for 2 additional times in between August 4th and today. And then August 4th is also represented at the back. So as you can see, the brick veneer has gone on to the concrete block at the foundation. Shingling has been ongoing. Some trim around the windows, as reported, has continued. The back temporary shelter and raised area have been removed, and a back door has been installed with a side light.
So there has been some progress in the last 30 days. There's still work to do, but there has been some
Correct.
progress. Questions of Catherine while she's present? Or we can invite Mr. Dell, who is asked to speak today, and Catherine can...
I do have one question, and that is, when you go out there, are there people physically working on the property? Are there contractors there, subcontractors, laborers?
Sometimes. I usually don't capture them in the photograph because that's not really why I'm there.
Because I've been by the property twice, and I've never seen anybody there working when I go by.
Yeah, on the one day that you see there, I think it's August 17th, you see stacks of brick. There was actually a brick mason on the site at that time. I usually also like to go by first thing in the morning before I come to the office. And at other times, there has been another person there who's doing a lot of the work, the carpentry and that kind of thing, who has requested not to be in the photographs.
Mr. Dell?
Thank you. My name is Brian Dell. I live at 528 Northwest 17th Street, which is next door to this property, and my wife can't be here today because she's teaching. But I have previously submitted this past Friday an update on what I see. The question was asked, for example, is how often are people working there? My wife and I are probably able to best tell you how often people are working there. And as I point out in the letter that I submitted to the board, that there were some fellows there, brick masons, who came, and they were there for approximately 2 days. I've included pictures of the bricks that they did lay and pointed out that they do not match the brick trim that goes around the base of the rest of the house. And there was, as Ms. Montgomery suggested, the tarp or canopy, if you will, over the equipment was removed. Actually, it was more like moved, as you can see from the picture that I have, that the frame itself was put over some sort of a shed at the back.
And I would remind you that when we talked about that in August, that she said there was no indoor storage, and I simply requested that it be moved away from the house. And so it may be less than optimal that they moved it farther back in the yard, but they did move it. And
they did move it,
and we did ask them to do that.
Of being there, it's really just in a different place, but it doesn't really make much difference.
But if it's less unsightly, farther removed in the yard and away from the house.
Well, I think they just changed the sightliness instead of the view in the backyard.
I understand, but what we're looking for, in my opinion, is progress toward a resolution of this issue that has gone on and on and on and on. And I wish that we could miraculously make it whole today. But I'm going to be reasonably content if we begin to show forward signs of progress toward getting this thing and moving it on an upward trajectory toward being completed.
Ms. Montgomery pointed out last time when we were here 30 days ago, but I don't think she mentioned it today, and that is the windows that are on the back side of this addition are not conforming. And that is one of the things that was a requirement to be done here. And I think also that the brick veneer that was placed along the back needs to be conforming to the front too, and according to the plans. So we have something that was done that is a continuation of this problem.
And I don't think anybody's suggesting that we're done. I think, what we're looking for again is Lana is no longer directing the work of the contractor. Mr. Friesen is. You're the occupant of the house, I believe, are you not?
I might suggest that I know Ms. Colmia mentioned that the last time that she was here, and that Mr. Friesen has mentioned today that she had been the contractor on the matter. The same fella that has been doing the work, which is mostly on the inside, is the same one that's been doing it for 8 years. And the only time that I've seen him do any work on the outside was whenever he put the shingles around that window that is the kitchen. It is a show on the bricks on the west side. It's a little window right in the middle right there. He put shingles around that. Only work I've seen him do on the outside. There are so many other non-conforming things. I really don't know what the board can do, but I wish that they would.
Well, we're going to seek a resolution and a corrective action on everything that we can that's within the scope of what we can consider. And I want to assure you that we've heard your pleas and we understand your frustration and that of the neighborhood association and the other neighbors. And I will do everything that I can, and I'm sure Mr. Friesen will too, to try to go ahead and bring this house into compliance. I'm sure everybody involved would like to see the project completed and move on.
Well, the only thing I would question, and I don't mean to be rude about it, but this has been going on for 8 years, and the progress has been inexorably slow, shall we say.
I understand.
Who's doing the siding on the back of the house then? Who is conducting that work? Well, it's not the single gentleman that's working out there?
Well, someone else came, and this was a few months ago, right after, whenever I first lodged a protest again, shall we say, back in March. And after that, there was some work that was done on it, I'm guessing just because I know that there was a meeting with some of the staff and with Ms. Colmia, and I think it was in late May. And that sometime during that time, that they completed most of the rest of the shingling, if you will, and you can see the two colors of the shingle that go in there. The shingle had been up for a long time, a new shingle that was put up by some fellows that looked like they probably did that kind of siding. But that was back in like April of this year. And since then, there's been virtually nothing go on the outside except for the things that the commission or the board required this last month.
But it appears from the progression of pictures here that the siding that's on the house there was work conducted on that in the last, during August.
I'm sorry?
During August. It appears that, is that right, Catherine? It appears that there was a progression of the shingling on the back side of the house during August. Is that right?
There may have been some shingling on the east side that I can't see.
On the back side. Look, on the back side, if you see these pictures, there's some progression of shingling going on.
Yeah, I think in the past 30 days, there has been some work that's taken place largely on the east side to bring that to a point of trying to get finished. There may have been some work on the back, but I think most of it on the back, around the door, and the parts that were covered by the temporary tarp.
Okay.
Mr. Friesen, can you identify who is doing this work at this time?
His name is John Nelson.
And what is your position on whether the windows are conforming or not conforming?
I would have to look back. I have not.
And then what is your position as to the brick veneer?
The brick was matched as close as they could come, and it's not just brick veneer, it is brick. Those are entire bricks, not brick veneer as has previously been stated. Those are matched just as close as you can currently get today.
It's Mr. Nelson is the person that's working on it, did you say his name?
Mr. Nelson is the person that is there every day. He's not the one that laid the bricks.
Well, I've been out there twice, and I've never seen anybody out there. So what does he come out? You're saying he comes out daily? Is he there from 8 to 5?
every day. I'm not going to say 8 to 5 every day because he has some other chores in reference to this project that are not there, such as purchasing supplies and that. He's working every day.
Would you have any problem with him coming to our next meeting and telling us about the windows, the brick veneer, and his work schedule?
No.
He was called up here today.
Yes, sir, and he intended to be here. He had a VA appointment this morning at 10 o'clock, and I'm not familiar with that, but he called just prior to me coming into this meeting and indicated that they hadn't yet got around to performing the test, and that if he left, he didn't get back into the rotation until sometime in the future.
Could you just share with us what your intentions are regarding the work that's left to be done in the non-conforming items?
Part of the problem, and if I could back up just a little bit, originally the Bowmans purchased this home based upon the fact that he was an FAA instructor here, contract instructor here at the FAA, got transferred to Denver, Tracon, and was working there, wanted to come back here and retire. Instead of being able to do that, he was transferred to Springfield, and that transfer necessitated him taking a fairly significant cut in salary, as well as he was not able to sell his home in Colorado. So at that point, he was making payments on 2 homes plus a lower salary to deal with. It was at that point that the aggressive schedule that he had been on, and I'm not going to say that it wasn't geared more towards the internal aspects of the home as opposed to the external, which I understand is where the emphasis needs to be. But that necessitated somewhat of a restricted schedule based upon the money. The items that are left to be done on the outside are what has been conveyed to Mr. Nelson needs to be worked on virtually exclusively, and that is what he is going to do. The only reluctance that you hear in my voice in terms of giving you any hard, fast time frame is the Bowmans have gotten estimates for the brickwork, and that is a relatively expensive chunk at one time. They are looking to figure out where that financing can come from. But Mr. Nelson's instructions are to work virtually exclusively on getting the rest of the items taken care of.
To make it the priority and let the interior work proceed as, and I understand the circumstances that, now, they own the home, are you simply living there and as a renter, but you're not contributing financially to the construction cost, or, I mean?
That's correct.
Okay, okay. But you're their eyes and ears because you're here?
That's correct.
Do you feel like that you fully understood, you know, the board orders in July and the board orders in August, were they conveyed to you, or did you go back and watch, you know, the replay of the meeting so that you knew?
I did not watch the replay of the meeting. However, I can assure you that this board's order was adequately conveyed to me by Ms. Golmia. The problem is once again one of scheduling. Mr. and Mrs. Bowman, last week, after having their home in Colorado on the market for 2 weeks, had an opportunity to sell it and went up there for the closing, and were able to get that sold. They had to contribute some out of their pocket to make the deal work, but they in fact did that. But that necessitated them taking last week off to do that, and as a result, it could not get this week off. It is not a matter of any disrespect or uncaring for this board.
And I think what we're looking for is a common understanding of why we're here, and that there's no, you know, misunderstanding about the fact that the work on the exterior house, and specifically the work on the back of the house that's part of this order, is to be completed, and completed expeditiously. And that if it means setting aside some of the work in the interior, If the interior is livable, then that should be secondary to finishing not only the work that needs to be completed, but dealing with the non-conforming items.
That has been very adequately conveyed to me by Ms. Golmia, and I accept it's being adequately conveyed today. And I assure you, I have told the same thing to the Bowmans, and I have heard their instructions specifically, both to me and to Mr. Nelson, in reference to what is to be done, and they comport with that.
In terms of finishing, and dealing with the non-conforming items and the construction that's left to be completed, what do you think?
With the exception, with two exceptions, and they are the back porch that I have addressed, because I don't know about the money issue there. I think all of the rest of the items should be able to be taken care of with this caveat. Some of the work that needs to be done on the new roof line is going to necessitate either removal or repair of the old shingles. When that was previously discussed with Catherine, because there's going to have to be some new shingles put up right underneath the roof line, and then for the triangle things, and I'm sure there's a word of art for them, but I don't know what they are. For those to be put up there, I've got to have the shingles placed there. Those shingles go over other shingles that right now are not adequate because of their condition.
And it sounds to me like that there's some work that's previously been done that's non-conforming that's going to have to be removed and redone.
I'm sorry?
It sounds like some of the previously done work is going to have to be fixed because it was non-conforming.
I believe that I think that's true.
And I'm glad to hear that the Bowmans have been able to sell their Colorado house, so they have one less mortgage to pay, and hopefully they'll have more free cash flow within the family. And I'm sure they're anxious to go ahead and finish this up.
Yes, they are.
Are you still asking?
We're still, how much, because I think, our intention is to try to move this forward for the benefit of the Dells, the homeowners association, the other neighbors that have been concerned about the condition of the house.
I've got some concerns about the good faith here, and it's pretty obvious. Did the Bowmans contact the board to tell us that they wouldn't be here today directly, even though they were ordered to be here? Okay, so a phone call or email or something like that would have taken care of that, I would imagine.
I don't believe that they thought that was necessary because I'm here as a representative.
No, our order was for them to be here personally.
I understand that.
And so they violated what was a direct order of the board at that time. I remember the conversation at the last meeting was that they're in contempt of our order and didn't even have the courtesy even to call, say, we've run into this conflict and we can't be here. That's not your obligation to do that. You can come here and speak for them, but obviously you don't know very much about their financial condition or their ability to finish this or the time frames to finish it, because all you were talking about here is caveats, and except for this or except for that, And I think we're listening to more of the same thing. You've been there. You've been in the house all this time. And now you've been assigned to come and talk about it here, but I'm not hearing that there's anything very definitive about, that you don't know all of the facts involved in it. There's obviously a lot of discovery we could have continuing as to whether or not the improvements that have been put in there are according to the requirements, whether or not the windows qualify, whether the roof lines qualify. And I just see more of the same thing going on. We've been putting up with this. We were frustrated at the last meeting, and I'm not any less frustrated right now. So, it's not your fault, but you're the one standing here, okay?
Well, I will have to say that it probably is my fault because Mr. Bowman asked me if he needed to call you, and my response was that I didn't think that you would be able to talk to them because they were represented by an attorney. So I think it is my fault.
They didn't call me either.
Excuse me?
They didn't call me either. The Bowmans did not call me either.
No, I know they didn't call you. I advised them that it would be inappropriate, since they were represented, for this body to talk to them, is what I represented to them. Now, if that advice is wrong, that's my fault.
Well, I think that they're adults, and they could have figured out that all they had to do is call up here and say, we can't be here today.
Against the direct advice of their attorney?
Well, I don't know. I'm
And
not a lawyer.
I guess that's what I want to understand is, you say you represent them. You are their attorney, is that correct? And you are the tenant in the home, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. How long have you been representing them?
30 days.
All right. And how often do you speak with them? Weekly, daily?
Weekly. However, they were here for a couple of days last week to work out some of those issues on their way back from Colorado.
Do you have any other relationship with them? Are you friends? Are they your relatives? Just acquaintances?
No, they're not relatives.
Okay. Would you please ask them to come and attend our next meeting?
Yes, sir.
And would you also ask Mr. Nelson to come and attend our next meeting so we can get to the bottom of these windows, as to the brick veneer, and as to the best case scenario when this will be finished and the worst case scenario when it will be finished?
Yes, sir.
Our next meeting is September the 15th. The next meeting after that is October the 6th. What is if you're thinking in terms of considering a continuance and compelling again the attendance of the Bowmans and the contractor?
I will have them here.
Do the other board members have a preference for the date that you would consider for a continuance?
It'd be my preference.
What time do you need to have them come here? Do they need a month to come here?
I think it would be a little bit easier. Mr. Bowman is second in charge of the airport at Springfield, and I think he'll probably need a little bit of time.
I'd say this. My concerns are with the Dell family, and I would rather that they come to the next meeting on the 15th, unless it's impossible, and you can report back to us if it is impossible for them to come to the next meeting. But my motion would be that they attend the August 15th meeting along with the contractor.
September 15th.
Excuse me, September 15th. And that would be my motion.
Mr. Baker?
That's the extent of our action on this particular item.
Well, and I think we could also condition it. We're conditioning it upon the appearance at the September 15th meeting of the Bowmans and of the contractor. And also, as previously stated, don't waste the time. You have committed to us, and I'm asking you to abide by that commitment, to move your contractor's efforts to the exterior of the house, let the inside wait. And you focus, his full attention to the compliance with this board's order to complete this rear addition. And it's not only the new construction that's still to be done, but it's also, communicating with the city and dealing with the items that have already been installed that are non-conforming.
So is your motion to continue the matter to September 15th with the conditions that the Bowmans be present?
And the
that
contractor,
be
they
present,
both be compelled to attend the September 15th meeting.
and that additional work continue in the interim?
Yes, please.
And did I hear you, just for clarification, if I call them today and they tell me that, I don't know, there's some huge meeting going on at the FAA there, telling me that they on the 15th, but they could make it on the October meeting, was your instruction that they have to be here on the 15th, or that I could call you and you could indicate their inability to comply?
I want this back here on September 15th. I want to continue to see how the work progresses, and if they can't be here, then you can pick up the phone and call Rita and talk to them about coming a month from now. But I would still like to see you and the contractor on the 15th of September.
Yes, sir.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is the motion clear to staff, to Rita?
Yes.
Okay. Please register your vote. You are continued to September the 15th.
Excuse me, I missed the representation issue. I didn't know you were an attorney representing them. I didn't, if you announced yourself as that, I didn't hear that, so that's the reason for my confusion on that. Yeah.
I apologize if I didn't make it clear.
Okay. No, you may have said it, I just didn't hear it.
That concludes our business. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.